In this video, I'm gonna rate 15 topics in composition, music education, and technology as either overrated or underrated. My name is Maria Finkelmeyer. I'm a composer, percussionist, and educator at Berklee College of Music. I'm gonna give myself 1 minute to explain each overrated or underrated topic, so let's get to it.
Category 1, composition, microtonality.
Oh, wait, which one's under? Okay, microtonality is underrated. So here's my thoughts on this. I have a background in like contemporary avant-garde music. That type of music I think goes really intense in trying to break up what is tonality. So while going da 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 sounds like really nice in a major scale, there's so many tones and sounds and pitches in between each of those da. And this is really popular in cultures that are non-Western classical. And I think we need to implode what we understand and what we think is right. And we can take some inspiration and we can pull in some of these like crunchy, yummy in-between spaces to create art and create music that one speaks to many cultures and two is just like really creative.
Okay, topic number 2, silence.
Silence is underrated. Get it? Because I was silent and I said underrated. So, why is silence in music composition underrated? Because we actually need to give time for people to digest things. Like when we're in the compositional process and we're making something, we think that, wow, I've heard that melody 10 times. Wow, that rhythmic expression, I'm so over it. But when someone's listening to something for the first time, they are just digesting it. They are just trying to understand it. So we need to give them time to be like, oh, okay, I get it. We also need to like bring suspense in the music, and I think silence offers that moment for suspense of what is going to be next. So I would definitely say silence is underrated. We need to use it more.
Unconventional time signatures like 39/16 or 15/8.
So this is a very personal topic and I feel a little bit attacked. As a percussionist, I feel like I spent a lot of my time in school being like, I can play 7/5/3/2, which I can't, but I tried. And yes, introducing like something that like jars people or like takes them out of something that's cyclical is really cool. But when you kind of just do it to just do it, it frustrates the performer and it doesn't really have an emotional connection. Or ask yourself, does that reason that you're choosing that time signature, does it have a purpose? And if the answer is yes, do it. But if the answer is no, I'm just being like cool and academic, then don't do it.
A432.
So like tuning. What? One, I had to think about that. And two, I play the marimba. And what the marimba is tuned to is what is true. Actually, A440 is a marimba, A442 is vibraphones. So I just go, you come to me, people. You can choose whichever A you want. So tuning to a specific oscillation per second, 440, 442, 450. I don't even know. What this means is it can sound like this, or it can sound like this. And when you have a huge group of people, like an orchestra or a jazz ensemble, you kind of have to decide where you're going to go. And there's usually one person that does that, and that's an oboe player in an orchestra. But unfortunately for percussionists, we kind of are what we are. And the bars are tuned to that kind of A440 or A442 automatically. So you kind of have to decide within an ensemble, like, where are you going to go? So I feel like it just is like, where's that ensemble? Where's that group of people going to go? So I would say overall, as long as your group sounds together, that's what matters.
Parallel fifths.
Oh, underrated. They're the best things ever. You should write parallel fifths all the time. Because you know what sounds really good? Fifths on the marimba. And that's actually the only time I ever write parallel fifths is when I'm like having a bass octave here. And I think it's okay. There's all these rules in Western classical music of like, don't do this, don't do this. But when you really like sit back and you listen to a piece of music and you play a piece of music, the question is, does this resonate with me? Yes or no? And honestly, a lot of times when I'm playing marimba and then I'm writing for it, sometimes it just feels happy and nice. And then I analyze it and I'm like, oh, those were parallel fifths in that motion. And then you have my 5-year-old listen to it and she's like, cool, mom, that was great. Or you have your colleague play it and it sounds great. And like, that's fine. I don't get a slap on the wrist when I write parallel fifths. So I'm not gonna do that for you. Learn what the theory says and then break all the rules.
Okay, next one. Percussion only ensembles.
This is my jam, y'all. Listen, listen, listen. What is percussion? What is the family of percussion instruments? You have everything. You have drums, you have metallic instruments, you have membranophones of all different cultures and sizes and types and timbres. You have every type of keyboard instrument you can ever imagine. Marimba, vibraphone, glockenspiel, chimes, everything in between that. And listen, you can get so many textures and layers of music that really work beautifully together because they're struck and they resonate. So when you get like 20 percussionists together playing together, it's so beautiful to watch. And then sonically, it can be so rich because you can have the spectrum of the earthy tones of a drum. You can have the glittering tones of a glockenspiel. It's a type of music that I grew up playing and I just love so much, and it is super niche. It's very niche, but I think it's cinematic sounding. We could tell a lot of stories, and then it's also just so visually interesting and like wonderful to watch because you see the physicality of music being played. My 1 minute is over. And scene.
The next category is music education, conservatory.
Oh. I'm like shaking. Here's what I think. I'm a conservatory trained musician. I'm so proud of it. I'm here because I worked my butt off to play really well, to understand music, to like live in it, to understand chamber music, orchestral music, to play, to just say, I love to do this. I think that it's really important to have spaces where people who are passionate, talented, focused can be living in a space where they have an education where they can grow and become what they want. I think the way conservatories are structured right now is not reflective of what students need today, which is a space to be more creative, a space to understand rules but then break rules, a space to explore cross-disciplinary, because when you're in a conservatory, you are a dancer, you're a trumpet player, you are an actor, you are doing this one specific thing, you're a percussionist, but how is that actually applied to the real world? You're not really taught in conservatory, and I think if we're thinking cross-disciplinary, if we're infusing technology, if we're learning entrepreneurial skills at that age, then people are actually learning to apply it. So conservatory as it is framed right now in the American system is overrated. However, if it shifts with the times, there's definitely a space for that type of training in the world, and we need it, and we need musicians that are passionate and amazing, but the system itself has to evolve.
Figured bass.
As music education, like in music education, I don't think it should be rated. I think you should have one semester of it and be done. I think it's essential if you're studying Western classical music, you need to know figured bass. You need to understand like how that type of music is created. It hasn't infused itself in my compositional process in like a heavy way, but I do need to understand like if I'm building a chord, like what inversion is it in? Because that actually helps me build something that is interesting to listen to. But I break the rules all the time. I write parallel fifths like more often than anyone ever should. So like I don't remember any of the rules of figured bass, but I think I'm happy that I had that foundation.
Ear training.
Oh, shoot. Story time. I cried during ear training a lot in college. I wasn't so good at it. So I will go that like, I'm proud that my ears got better over time. A lot of my education was focused on sight singing, which is not my jam. However, I'm happy I did it. I think that, again, the like training system needs to be more reflective to what musicians and artists need to know and need to be able to do. What if hours I spent in a classroom trying to sight sing was applied to learning how to program? I would be able to create these like codes and use electronic music at an earlier age. It's a little bit overrated because the value of your musicianship is based on how well you can sight sing or how well you can articulate a chord with one hearing, where I think there's a lot more complexities to the value system that need to be looked at to say this person is worthy of a good grade or worthy to be a musician. So I do find it to be a little overrated. Sorry to all my colleagues, you're amazing if you teach ear training.
Cool. Next one, music theory.
Oh, okay. Look, I am a conservatory trained musician, and we need to remember that we need to understand how music functions in order to make music. So as a performer, I needed to understand the relationship between two chords or the relationship between this melodic movement in order to play it. Now in my professional career, I have to memorize things really fast. And so my understanding of music theory is really important. As a composer, I need to know where I can go from one moment in music to the next. Understanding the foundation of how music works, I think, is really, really important. important. So I would say that music theory in general can be underrated when it comes to wanting a professional life in music. I do think that we should infuse a lot of different music theories into our education system, because right now we only teach music theory in the Western classical sense at conservatories and colleges of music. But that is one micro unit of how music functions. Music functions in many different ways. I think we undervalue the need for every musician to have a good foundation of music theory. We overvalue the importance of Western classical music theory because that's the only one we teach. So we just need to teach more.
Last topic under music education.
Okay.
Creative entrepreneurship for musicians.
It is underrated because everybody needs it. I teach creative entrepreneurship at Berkeley. I teach mindsets and business fundamentals, and soon I'll be teaching opportunities in the environment. I'm really excited to develop the class. The students come to me with these brilliant ideas, these fresh perspectives, these skill sets that are now and of the now. And within the walls of a music school, we don't ever make the connection to what is outside the music school. All it is about space. There's 2 hours a week that my students have to stop, slow down, not pick up their instrument, not pick up a compositional tool, and they actually have to think about what they're gonna do next. And I try to guide them through that, whether that's giving them really brass tacks tools of how to make a business plan, or just what is the performing mindset? What are these mindsets? 2 hours a week to just stop is so essential for a music student because they have to build the bridges. We have to give them the tools, we have to give them the bricks, we have to give them the steel beams, but they have to build those bridges. And if we don't give them the time to do it, they're gonna graduate and they're gonna just feel helpless because all they have is wonderful music theory, the opportunity to perform, some great friendships, but we still need to give them those tools to build. And I think building creative entrepreneurship curriculum is the way to do it.
The next category is technology. 1, AI-generated music.
I mean, this isn't that surprising, right? AI in general is this really complex conversation we're having right now in the creative industries. I write music. My colleagues do that. My husband creates photos. And now we are talking about computers generating art. And it's really challenging to talk about. But what I truly, truly believe is that the human creating, writing, and performing music is always going to be essential to the world, to our communities, to our peers, to our friends. The opportunity to experience music live is an opportunity to see, one, a human doing something incredible, which is to play music. It's to do it at a high level, to express. That creates these moments of connection that cannot be created by just listening to or observing artificially created content. Also, AI is trained on music of the past. And what is most beautiful is we have humans living in the world right now that can create stories and can create expressions that are reflective of what's happening in the world right now. So yes, we have these tools that are here's this type of genre or this type of groove, or here's a melody that sounds pleasing. And yeah, the computer can learn those things, but a human really needs to take those tools, recombine them to be reflective of a now space.
VR concerts.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I am probably in the middle of this. I think actually right now I'm gonna say underrated. So I'm saying underrated because I want more people to explore. There's so many people that don't access VR content yet because they don't have the tool or the accessibility to that tool. So I really want more technicians and artists and composers and creative people to be flirting in the space of how do we translate really authentic human experiences into the virtual reality space, because I think we're just getting started and exploring what that can do. I haven't experienced anything yet that I'm wow, that was amazing, and I'm so emotionally taken and I'm so excited. So for me, that means it's still underrated because it has there's still a road ahead that the space can explore, and there's opportunity there, because I haven't felt that I've seen the thing that is amazing yet, but I want to see the thing that is amazing.
Projection mapping.
I mean, it's cool. I think, okay. Yeah, we're gonna say projection mapping is still quite underrated. And there's a couple of things I wanna say about this. Projection mapping is when you project content onto a facade or surface that is specifically articulated for that surface. That means it could cut out a window, or it could be a triangle, or it can bring that space into a totally different reality, which I think is really beautiful. I'm super curious where this space goes next, because right now we've seen so many interesting interesting geometric expressions on a building. But I'm like, what else could you do with the skill of projection mapping? And I am like a novice to intermediate projection mapper. Like I can take my content and make shapes using a couple of different tools. And then there's people that are absolute experts and they're making buildings crumble just by using graphics. So I want more people to be exploring the space and more people with like different artistic perspectives to be exploring the space, because I think there's a lot of opportunity to transform city landscapes with a projector, a piece of software, and some really interesting imagery.
Motion tracking.
Oh, it's totally underrated. I love to track motion. Okay, so here's the super interesting thing about the fields that I live in. So the first field I live in is music. We move and we play. The other world I live in is this technology world. And in this like immersive museum projection light world, motion tracking has been done for a very long time. It's not a new topic, but when you take simple motion tracking technology and you combine it with live, organic human art, some really beautiful art can be made. So I have a project, Melody Figments, where we take my motion as I play marimba, and each moment becomes a line in a web that then becomes this three-dimensional object. We're eventually going to bring it in to VR and AR spaces in which you can live in music as it's being performed. So I think there's so much opportunity to take this very, not simple, but very done and very kind of researched technology and bring it into the musical space, bring it into new experience realities, and even like live music performances. So motion tracking, underrated.
Dolby Atmos.
I mean, I feel like people are talking about Dolby Atmos, but in my world right now, I'm so excited to explore it. To record or present music in Atmos or in spatial audio means the music you're hearing doesn't just live in stereo, which is just left and right. So oftentimes you put your earbuds in and like there's some music that is like over on this side, some music is on this side. And now we have this opportunity to think about like the whole room around you. So you can think about putting something behind your head. You can think about putting something in front of your head, up in the corner, down here. And I think that's just really exciting from the textural perspective. I'm learning so much having just recorded an album in Atmos, and even just in the studio, just the slight shifts we were taking in the mix was giving the human experience like a totally different energy. And that's like really exciting to me. And those are my very raw and organic takes on those topics. So thanks for watching.